The president of Finland, Alexander Stubb, is in Ottawa to meet with Prime Minister Mark Carney. A visit, Carney says, comes at a pivotal time.
But what we value as a country is the deep relationship we have with Finland. That's an important meeting. It's an important meeting because for our security, it's to rebuild a better system that works for the people of Canada, the people of Finland, the people of the world.
Since I think there's a lot of untapped potential in our trade, and we have lots of complementary interests, whether it's mining or advanced technologies like satellite systems, quantum computations, or defense dual-use technologies. But
how important are missions like this, relationships like Canada-Finland, as everybody seeks to sort of diversify their options from the United States with what's happening, right? The European Union has been under enormous strain from the changing nature of the U.S.
I think we could easily double the trade, and especially we are interested in the sort of dual-use sector of various technologies, whether it's 5G, 6G, trusted connectivity, but also the defense and naval capabilities that we have. So for instance, in Finland, we have designed 80% of the icebreakers of the world.
In a world of mounting disorder and US policy shocks, Prime Minister Mark Carney is moving decisively with middle power allies. Finland's visit signals a new era of strategic trade and Arctic defense. Why now? Because Canada's economic sovereignty hangs in the balance. Pay close attention to this.
But what we value as a country is the deep relationship we have with Finland. That's an important meeting. It's an important meeting because for our security, it's an important meeting for relations within Europe. It's an important meeting for Ukraine, helping to develop out of this disorder, and I don't think that's too strong a word, disorder in the international system, to rebuild a better system that works for the people of Canada, the people of Finland, the people of the world.
As those opening words from Prime Minister Carney echo, Canada stands at a crossroads where international disorder directly threatens our economy and security. With US tariff pressures and shifting NATO dynamics under the current American administration creating uncertainty for our most integrated trading partner, Carney is forging deeper ties with like-minded middle powers like Finland. This isn't mere diplomacy. It's a calculated move to strengthen supply chains in critical minerals, defense technology, and Arctic capabilities while reducing over-reliance on any single partner. Finland shares our sparse population, advanced economy, and passion for ice hockey. But more importantly, both nations recognize the need for strategic autonomy amid great power competition. New context reveals this visit builds on Carney's recent Nordic engagements, accelerating cooperation in quantum tech and satellite systems that bolster Canadian sovereignty in the north. How will these alliances insulate our growth from external shocks? The next revelation shows just how ambitious the trade goals truly are.
Political ties, sir?
Much closer. So I think we are close trading partners already, but I see a lot of untapped potential. So I think we could easily double the trade, and especially we are interested in the sort of dual-use sector of various technologies, whether it's 5G, 6G, trusted connectivity, but also the defense and naval capabilities that we have. So for instance, in Finland, we have designed 80% of the icebreakers of the world. We have built half of them, and we have lots of capability.
Building directly from that ambitious trade doubling pledge, Finland's Economic Affairs Minister highlights complementary strengths that play perfectly into Carney's vision for diversified prosperity. Beyond current ties, sectors like mining, quantum computation, and dual-use defense technologies offer massive untapped potential that could create thousands of high-skilled Canadian jobs while securing critical supply chains. Finland's world-leading icebreaker expertise directly addresses Canada's Arctic sovereignty challenges at a moment when melting ice opens new strategic routes amid global competition. This partnership isn't reactive. It's proactive resilience against volatility from US policy shifts and Middle East disruptions. Carney's government is positioning Canada as a reliable middle power hub, leveraging CETA frameworks to build trusted networks less vulnerable to unilateral tariffs or supply shocks. What deeper security dimensions does this unlock? The following segment reveals how NATO alignment and shared views on European stability amplify these economic gains.
How important are missions like this, relationships like Canada-Finland, as everybody seeks to sort of diversify their options from the United States with what's happening, right? The European Union has been under enormous strain from the changing nature of the U.S. Certainly, it's the case here in Canada, the most integrated economy on earth with the Americans. How important is this to fit into that dynamic?
It's highly important. I mean, of course, like the war of Ukraine is also very close to us, and we basically like closed the sort of relations with Russia. So anyway, I mean, we need to diversify also and rebalance our trade.
That frank discussion on diversification exposes the underlying pressure both nations feel from evolving US transatlantic policies and tariff uncertainties impacting integrated economies like Canada's. Finland, having closed relations with Russia due to the Ukraine conflict, actively seeks new partners including Canada, the UK and Asian allies to rebalance trade. For Prime Minister Carney, this alignment offers a vital buffer, allowing Canada to pursue strategic autonomy without isolation. New layers include joint Arctic maritime and tech policies that enhance resilience against any future border or trade frictions. This isn't about confrontation but smart hedging, middle powers pooling resources in defense dual use and advanced technologies to maintain growth even as great power rivalry between the US and others intensifies. Carney's steady hand here contrasts with reactive approaches elsewhere, positioning Canada for long-term sovereignty. Yet how does the Middle East shadow complicate this picture? The next insight brings the global economic warning into sharp focus.
Of course we are concerned, so especially if the situation in the Gulf area is extended, I think there's a chance of a recession. So and I would say with a kind of immediate view, I think we are pretty much sort of prepared in a sense of our, let's say, the security of supply or emergency measures like gasoline and so on. But the effect it might have on the global economy and can get quite severe if it drags on. So I mean, our growth in Finland has been quite modest, as it has been in Canada in recent years, so about 0.5% or so.
Right.
We expected about 1.5% growth for this year, and probably we need to sort of decrease the expectations because of the situation in the Gulf.
Connecting the diversification push to rising energy risks, Finland's minister voices shared concern over potential Gulf escalation fueling global recession, a warning echoed in recent IMF assessments of slower growth and higher inflation from prolonged conflict. For Canada, already facing modest growth like Finland's 0.5%, this adds urgency to Carney's strategy of building alternative resilient partnerships. New context shows how oil price spikes could benefit adversaries while diverting international focus, indirectly pressuring Ukraine's support that both nations prioritize. Carney is using this moment to accelerate tech and defense ties that diversify energy security and supply chains, insulating Canadian households from imported inflation. This proactive middle power cooperation mitigates rather than merely reacts to external shocks from US policy or Middle East volatility. The question now intensifies: can these alliances truly offset superpower disruptions? The following point examines the limits and opportunities of middle power solidarity.
Can the cooperation and collaboration of the middle powers offset the disruption that the great power competition between the U.S. and China is causing to the world economy? Can we get to a point where we're kept whole and can grow, or is it about mitigating against those effects, do you think?
I think it can offset it to a certain extent, but I mean, when it's a power competition largely between two superpowers, the United States and emerging superpower, if not already China. I mean, middle powers, they have their role to play, but I think it's recalibrating. It has a role to play, but I still think that the relations between the two major superpowers and that's still dominant.
Flowing from recession risks, this candid assessment underscores that while middle power collaboration like Carney's Finland initiative can partially buffer disruptions from US-China competition, ultimate dominance rests with superpowers. Yet for Canada, this realism drives smarter strategy, not naive isolation, but targeted alliances in Arctic policy, quantum tech, and naval capabilities that carve out autonomy. Carney's approach, rooted in shared NATO membership and common views on rebuilding order, strengthens resilience where full independence isn't feasible. New analysis reveals how such ties complement ongoing US relations while hedging against tariff volatility and supply chain fragility. By focusing on complementary interests like mining and trusted connectivity, Canada gains leverage without confrontation. This balanced path protects sovereignty and growth amid uncertainty. With the full picture now clear, the deeper implications demand urgent reflection on Canada's long-term trajectory. As the Finland visit concludes with handshakes on Parliament Hill and shared ice time that symbolised more than sport, a hidden power play emerges that mainstream coverage barely touched. Prime Minister Mark Carney is quietly architecting a network of middle power alliances designed to grant Canada strategic depth precisely where US policy unpredictability creates openings, leveraging Finland's NATO frontline experience and icebreaker dominance to fortify Arctic claims without directly challenging Washington, yet subtly signalling that Ottawa will not remain passively dependent. Public reaction on platforms pulses with a mix of cautious optimism and sharp anxiety. Canadian commenters praise Carney for finally diversifying and standing tall on sovereignty, with many noting the visit's timing amid ongoing tariff frictions and Iran-related energy warnings as proof of prudent leadership. Though skeptics question whether doubling trade can truly materialize fast enough to offset modest growth forecasts and household cost pressures, revealing an electorate hungry for tangible wins but wary of prolonged global headwinds. This moment echoes Carney's Bank of England tenure during the Brexit turmoil, where he navigated currency shocks and uncertainty with calm, data-driven stabilisation that preserved investor confidence. Today, facing a parallel Canadian crisis of trade rebalancing and northern defence needs, he deploys the same steady analytical prowess, turning disorder into opportunity rather than crisis. External context sharpens the argument. The IMF's fresh downward revision of global growth to 3.1% for 2026, citing risks of deeper recession if Gulf tensions drag on with oil prices climbing, underscores the fragility that makes Carney's pivot not optional but essential for shielding Canadian supply chains and energy security. In this high-stakes recalibration, where middle powers carve influence amid superpower shadows, the lingering question that refuses to fade is whether Carney's calculated alliances will secure a prosperous, sovereign Canada for the next generation, or if external forces will ultimately test the limits of our middle power resilience in ways that reshape our economy and identity forever. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, share, comment. Drop your take in the comments. Is Carney's middle power strategy with Finland moving fast enough to protect Canadian sovereignty and growth? Or are we already too late amid rising global pressures?